Welcome to episode 140 of Build Your House Yourself University by BYHYU. I'm your host and fellow student, Michelle Nelson, and together we'll learn the basics of home design and construction and demystify the building process so we can build quality dream homes with or without a general contractor. You can't beat the durability and low maintenance advantages of synthetic faux wood materials. But I've seen lots of synthetic wood look materials, and although a few of them look pretty realistic, most people feel like no synthetic material can match the natural beauty of real wood. And for those people, that beauty is worth the extra maintenance required to use authentic wood for the exterior of their homes. So for those of us considering using real wood, whether as decking or as exterior wall cladding, fences, or garage doors, we'll take a closer look at some of the most popular wood species used for exterior applications in hopes of helping us decide which wood might be best for our projects. We'll also briefly consider composite and plastic wood alternatives. Although no wood is completely immune from rotting and insect damage, some species resist decay better than others. The three most widely available naturally insect and rot-resistant species include western red cedar, redwood, and cypress. These woods are suitable for exterior use without having to be treated with chemical preservatives, although stains and sealants will protect those varieties to an even greater extent. For many varieties of wood, the level of weather and bug resistance is directly related to the amount of heartwood in the boards. Heartwood comes from the center of the tree and is relatively hard and very resistant to decay. Sapwood comes from the outer part of the tree, near the bark, and it's softer and more susceptible to decay. As you might imagine, heartwood is more expensive than sapwood. Your geographic location will determine the availability and cost of the different types of wood. Redwood, for example, is widely available and used in the western United States. Western red cedar is more commonly sold in the Midwest, and cypress grows throughout the southern and southeastern U.S. Let's talk about those species and a few more in greater detail. Cypress. Cypress grows in swamps. Its sapwood is almost white, while the heartwood varies from light yellow to dark brown. Although it's strong and dense, cypress is not so dense that it's difficult to work with. It's easy to cut into boards. Another advantage of cypress is that it performs well in humid locations. Although cypress can work in any climate, it's an especially smart choice in humid and coastal areas. Humidity can cause warping in many other types of wood, but cypress is the exception. Because it grows in swampy, humid areas, it can withstand the elements well. If you need exterior wood on a home that's close to the beach or in the deep south, you might strongly consider cypress. Despite its many advantages, cypress has one major drawback. It can be expensive. The appeal and relative scarcity of cypress means it's increasingly harder to come by, and its price reflects that. Redwood. Redwood is a good choice for all climates. It resists shrinking, warping, and cupping. It absorbs and retains its finishes very well and requires less maintenance than some other species. Redwood is also naturally insect resistant, not only on the surface, but also throughout the wood. It's regionally available in the West and can be difficult and more expensive to obtain in other regions. Because it's so dense, redwood can split when nails or screws are driven into it, and redwood's tannins can bleed to its surface, causing unwanted discoloration. Tannins are internal extracts or oils found within the wood that can extend to the surface of the wood, causing splotchy stains. Fortunately, you can avoid the bleeding of tannins by properly sealing the wood. Next on our list, cedar. Cedar is best known for its beautiful straight to slightly curved grain, and it's resistant to insects and rot. It takes a stain well. Cedar is dimensionally stable and resists swelling, shrinking, cupping, and splitting. Although cedar is naturally more moisture and insect resistant than many other woods, it must also be sealed and stained or painted to retain those properties. Cedar can be easily finished with oils, paints, and stains. Like redwood, cedar has tannins which can bleed to the surface of the wood, causing discoloration. There are a number of varieties of cedar growing across the United States. Different cedar varieties range from red to yellow to white. Western red cedar is obviously more red in color than other cedars. Red cedar is also very long-lasting, warps less than other varieties, and is less expensive than other cedars. Yellow cedar is much heavier than red cedar because of its natural wood oils and its tight grain. White cedar grows predominantly in the eastern U.S. It's considered one of the finer grades of cedar, and it has a light blonde color and a distinctive, pleasant smell. White oak. White oak is also known as the whiskey barrel wood. It's much less porous than red oak, so moisture can't readily wick into its end grain. White oak is not as commonly used as other wood species for exterior applications, but white oak has an appealing straight grain. It's super strong, and its heartwood resists decay. Like redwood and cedar, white oak splits rather easily, so you need to pre-drill screw holes. Next, Ipe. Ipe is spelled I-P-E. It's a new kid on the block. It's imported from Central and South America, where it grows rapidly. Ipe is also called Brazilian walnut. It's also named ironwood because it's so strong. Because Ipe is so strong, screw holes must be pre-drilled, and you actually might burn out drill bits in the process. Ipe is medium to dark brown in color, and it has a reddish tint. It's very dense, and it's stable. It can last 25 to 40 years, even if left untreated. It resists movement, warping, cracking, decomposition, and denting. Because it's so dense, Ipe doesn't accept stains or sealants very well, so you'll do best with a penetrating oil or penetrating sealant. Ipe is relatively expensive and sometimes hard to find, but Ipe costs about the same as many composite wood products, which we'll talk about in a moment. Teak. Teak is not only one of the hardest of all the wood species, but it's also one of the hardest to find. It's still available in small quantities, but you'll pay a pretty penny for this exotic favorite. Some varieties of teak are considered endangered species. Although some species of teak are grown in the U.S., most come from Asia. Teak has a beautiful brown color and straight grain. It's dimensionally stable and naturally water and insect resistant. Although teak is considered a fairly low-maintenance wood, it does need to be oiled every few years to keep its luster, color, and insect and water resistance. Now, let's move on to the softwood species, including pine, spruce, and fir. These softwoods are not naturally insect and moisture resistant, but they can be used for exterior applications if properly treated. Softwoods need to be chemically treated and/or regularly maintained and sealed in order to resist moisture, insects, and decay. This involves impregnating the wood with chemicals such as boron, which can help stop decay and increase its resistance to fire. Pine. Pine has long been a standard for exterior home projects. Pine is affordable, and it's available from coast to coast. Because it's a softwood, it's less expensive than harder species, but it's easy to cut and fasten with nails and screws. Pine holds a finish well, and it's a good material to use for surfaces that you want to paint or stain. Most pine for exterior applications is milled from southern yellow pine. The southern yellow pine is then chemically treated to resist rot, fungus, and insects. One challenge with pine is that it may be difficult to purchase not free in longer lengths. Another downside of pine is that it's not very dimensionally stable, so it has a tendency to crack, split, and warp. You need to be careful not to purchase fast growth pine because it can be especially prone to cupping and splitting. Routine maintenance is necessary to prolong the look and lifespan of pine. Maintenance includes power washing and staining and sealing every 2 to 3 years. Spruce. Spruce is a softwood that's a member of the pine family. It's readily available on the East Coast. It can be used as a substitute for pine, and it has a similar price. Spruce has many of the same characteristics of pine, but spruce comes in longer lengths. Fir. Like pine and spruce, fir is a soft wood and another budget-friendly option. It comes in long lengths and is easy to cut and install, and it takes a finish well. It's most readily available in the western U.S. Finally, let's quickly go over a couple of popular synthetic wood-like options, both of which are insect and rot resistant. Wood plastic composites. Wood plastic composites are made from plastic resins plus wood flour and wood fibers. Some are also made with recycled material. Surprisingly, some solid composites are not as stable as you might think, and they can expand and contract, especially along their lengths. They heat up in the sunlight, and they lack rigidity. However, they don't splinter, and they can offer good traction in wet conditions. Premium composite products have color going all the way through the boards instead of just as a coating, so scratches won't be as noticeable, and the boards will not stain or fade, and they have excellent mold resistance. Plastic wood. Plastic wood is also called PVC, and it looks like wood, or kind of looks like wood, but it's 100% plastic with no wood fibers. Like composites, plastic wood can expand and contract in certain climates. This can cause loosening of joints and can make decks and siding unstable. In hot, sunny areas, plastic decks can get very hot, making walking on them uncomfortable. But plastic wood, like composites, are very low maintenance. Here are some final things to think about when considering real wood for your project. Local wood is usually 40 to 50% cheaper than species that need to be ordered from other parts of the U.S. or from outside the states. When selecting a species, it's very important to get one that best fits the climate you live in, as different types of wood have different weather resistance properties. Ask local contractors or lumber yards which woods work best in your climate. Remember, swampy cypress works well in humid coastal areas. Compared to other exterior materials, wood can be replaced and repaired rather easily. DIY homeowners can do simple repairs themselves. The cost of labor to repair wood is not as expensive as the cost of repairing some other types of material, such as aluminum. One of the reservations that homeowners have about installing exterior real wood is that it needs more maintenance than almost any other exterior material. Maintenance includes restaining, repainting, and/or resealing about every 3 to 5 years, depending on your climate. Be warned, even with the best maintenance, almost all unpainted wood will eventually turn gray. Maintaining wood with stains, sealants, and paints will slow the rate of its deterioration, but eventually all wood will need to be replaced. Generally, you can expect most species of well-maintained wood to last about 30 to 40 years. To prevent mold and fungus growth, mold repellents must also be applied. And termite repellents should be applied to wood species that are not naturally insect resistant. In some areas, woodpeckers can also cause damage to real wood, but moving, shiny objects will usually scare woodpeckers into not bothering your house. Things like metal pinwheels or shiny mylar tape that's hung in a way so that it moves in the wind. If left alone without regular maintenance, wood is prone to accelerated graying, drying, cracking, warping, splitting, and rotting. Because exterior wood is available in many different types and grades of species, pricing varies greatly. More durable species, such as redwood and cedar, can cost 2 to 3 times more than more economical varieties, such as pine. A good rule of thumb is to buy the best grade of wood you can afford. On average, you should expect to pay $5 to $10 per square foot installed for non-exotic wood species. Exotic species like ipe and teak will cost more. When deciding whether the beauty of real wood is worth the cost, don't forget to factor in the cost of periodic maintenance. The bottom line is, if you choose real wood, choose it for aesthetic reasons, not for financial or practical considerations. All right, before we go, let's do a couple of quiz questions. Question number 1. Which of the following is not a soft wood? A, teak. B, pine. C, fir. D, spruce. The answer is A. Teak is not a soft wood. It's an exotic hardwood that's naturally insect and moisture resistant. Soft woods need to be chemically treated in order to be insect and moisture resistant. And question number 2, true or false? Synthetic wood composites are dimensionally stable and don't often contract or expand. That is surprisingly false. Composites do expand and contract, especially along their lengths. Well, that's it for me this week. I hope you learned as much as I did, and I hope you'll join me again for the next episode of Build Your House Yourself University. BYHYU. Please remember that the purpose of this podcast is simply to educate and inform. It's not a substitute for professional advice. The information that you hear is based only on the opinions, research, and experiences of my guests and myself. That information might be incomplete, it's subject to change, and it may not apply to your project. In addition, building codes and requirements vary from region to region, so always consult a professional about specific recommendations for your home.